What's up, Ursuline fans? Anthony ROMO here with the head football coach of the Ursuline Fighting Irish, Dan Reardon, here for our Week 2 Coaches Corner. Coach, we're going to jump right into things. The offense seemed to be clicking on all cylinders last week against Brookfield. You guys came out on top 52-14 in a highly anticipated matchup. First all-time matchup between Ursuline and Brookfield. Just Jack Erickson, new quarterback for the first time in 4 years here at Ursuline. What do you think about his play jumping into that starting quarterback role?
Yeah, I thought Jack played really, really well. He was graded out very high on his decision making. His timing, was pretty good. There were a couple of throws that might have been a tad late and things like that. But overall, his timing and decision making was really, really good. And those are two things that are critical from that position for us. And he really had an efficient night. He missed a couple long passes just barely and very easily. I think he was 9 for 12 passing for almost 200 yards, and was on the verge of really having a big performance there if he hits those two pass plays. But overall, really, really good.
And then you guys came out last week. Seemed like you had a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, and this will be the last time we'll talk about it. We'll get it out of the way since last year's in the past. Just how much did you want to get your guys out on the field after last year's heartbreaking state championship loss, and just get that in the past and have this year moving forward?
Yeah, obviously last season ended in a very disappointing fashion, and it's unfortunate because we had a fantastic football season, and we were less than a minute away from winning the state championship, and came up a little bit short. So that there's obviously that disappointment that lingers, but I think people sometimes focus on that and not what last year's team did accomplish, and that's unfortunate. But our kids were amped up, ready to go. I think, there was a lot of talk about who we lost, and we lost some fantastic football players. We lost our all-time career passing leader. DeMarcus McElroy set a rushing touchdown record last year for a single season, and he's a top 5 career performer at the position. Dean Boyd, great wide receiver playing for Harvard now. Ja'Kylan Irving at defensive back, and those are some of them. There's others as well. John Edmonds, really good linebacker, and Pat McCarthy on the offensive line. So I'm missing guys, but those are some of them. Now, that said, it seemed like every single question either me or my kids got all summer was, well, you lost these guys and you lost these guys. And we did. We lost some great football players. But, last Friday was a chance for our guys to really show people that, yeah, we lost some good players. And we have a lot of really good players back too also. And I was proud of how our kids played, and, it was good to move on from last year in that regard.
And the guy you're talking about, DeMarcus McElroy, you guys called him D-Mac, one of the best running backs to come through the doors of Ursuline High School. Christian Lynch stepped into that starting running back role. Him and Tyreek Donlow split some snaps in the backfield. He had 97 yards on the ground last week, also had a touchdown. How fitting does it feel as a coach to have a guy like Christian Lynch who not only can run the ball, but he's not scared to throw a block out as well if Jack Erickson decides to keep it in the backfield?
Yes, I thought very similar to Jack. I thought Christian played well, and he had a big run in particular where it looked like he was penned up in the backfield and was able to slip the 2 defenders and got a big gain out of it. And both those guys are only juniors, and both of them have 100 things they can improve upon, and I think both of them go about. They take their approach the right way to the game. They come every day. They have a good attitude. They're coachable. They try to fix mistakes, and I think because of that, they're both being really good football players for us.
And the highly patented Ursuline high-paced offense was back this year, and you guys were moving all over the field. It seemed like your offense was doing a good job of fatiguing Brookfield early on, especially in the second half. It seemed like you guys were really outmanning them. How much does that attest to the offseason strength and conditioning that you guys do at Ursuline?
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes. Mike Bartos is our strength trainer, and he is an Ursuline graduate. I had a chance to coach him way back in my first stint at Ursuline, and really good football player, phenomenal young man, and just loves the weight room and does a fantastic job of training our kids. So I have to give him a ton of credit. And, from a conditioning standpoint, that's something that our kids take a lot of pride in, because we do play at a fast pace, and our kids understand the value in it. And, we start early, and we have a very challenging conditioning test, on par with a lot of college conditioning type tests. And our kids take a lot of pride in it, and did a really good job this year in the off season building towards that. And, over 90% of our football team passed our conditioning test in May, which is, a full month and a half ahead of schedule. And, so it just shows you how focused they are on things.
You're talking about Coach Bartos being an Ursuline grad himself. I'm sure you have a lot of guys on your staff that are Ursuline alumnus. They bleed that Irish green and gold. How big is it to have guys that came through those doors and played for this Ursuline team to really show that the philosophy that Ursuline holds up to, and just show the team themselves that this is the kind of standard that you guys have to play up to at Ursuline High School?
Yeah, again, I think I've said this a number of times last year. I'm back for my fourth year since I've been back, and it's been a 4-year process, but really going into my second year was when kids really started to really embrace, the bigger picture of things. And we do have a high standard. The first year, we were trying to teach the team how we want to do things. And towards the end of the year, things started to click that way. And then that first off season, we took a big step. The 2020 season was unfortunate how it ended. We had a COVID issue in the regional championship, but it all goes back. We try to set high standards. Our kids have bought into it, and we've turned into a much more player-led football team as a result of that. And whereas 2 or 3 years ago it was a lot more coach-led, and us trying to explain what we needed to get done and holding to that. And now we're to the point where the older guys in our program do a really good job of that. And whether it's the weight room or the conditioning tests or August camp or how we run tempo offense or whatever it is.
So a lot of your experience from last year's team is on the line. Everyone knows that. They know that that was one of the biggest strong suits coming back this year. But it seems that a lot of the guys that are capable of getting the ball in their hands, the so-called skill position guys, are underclassmen. How critical do you think it is that you guys are getting a lot of these late season practices as of late? How critical are those practices in getting extra reps and experience for your younger guys?
Yeah, that's something that, I think that the average fan doesn't appreciate enough. And, you really don't appreciate it until you've been through it. But, we have a handful of sophomores playing for us right now that without that extra 6 weeks of practice last year, I'm not quite sure that they would be. I know for certain they wouldn't be where they are right now. And it's almost like those sophomores, we feel like they've been with us for 2 years, because 16 weeks of a season instead of just 10, that goes a long way. And if you're able to back that up a couple, 2 or 3 years in a row, all of a sudden kids have, an extra, 20, 24 weeks, potentially something like that, other than I guess the average high school football player. And, I guess the best thing I can compare it to is like compound interest when you're investing money. And it just, that experience is so critical. You get a little bit, you get a few more practices, and the reps add up, and they add up over the first week, then the second week. And, if you could do it next year as well, then all of a sudden, it's more and more and more and more. And that's what kids need. If you want to be a good football player, if you want to be good at anything, you need reps. And, it's so valuable.
I think one sophomore that really stuck out to me last week up in the booth was John Frangas. He stepped up a lot on the defensive end of the ball for you guys. Just talk about his growth in the offseason and what you were happy with of his performance last Thursday night.
Yeah, John's a really good football player, and he's young. He's one game into a sophomore year, and he is far from a finished product yet. We knew last year that he was going to be a good football player. He got on a couple special teams for us. Got in some games late playing running back and linebacker, and he's really a good football player. We're really excited about him, but again, him jumping right in and being a starter and being as active as he was last week wouldn't have happened without that extra 6 weeks of practice last year, I don't think.
and a guy that has really seemed to do the little things well within your program during his time at Ursuline, Will Burney. So
Yep.
take me back to last week. You guys had just scored a touchdown to go up 2 scores against Brookfield. Then you guys had an angled kickoff towards Burney's side. It was a squib kick type kick, and he ran down there and recovered the kick before a Brookfield kid could get to it. Just how much does a play like that shift momentum even more into your guys' favor?
Yeah, I think it's when you're able to make a play like that, it can be extremely deflating if you're on the wrong side of it, and obviously sparks momentum on our side. Will did a heck of a job getting down there, and it was a loose ball. The kick wasn't exactly perfect for how we planned it, but the result was what we intended, and so it worked out really, really well.
And now shifting towards this week, playing Parma Padua Franciscan. How big do you think the extra day off since you guys played on Thursday last week is going to help you guys out heading into this week?
Yeah, so that extra day, definitely helps if you're intentional with it, and we always feel like we are. We try to open up on a Thursday for that exact reason, and so we get an extra day, and that's always good.
So now heading into your opponent this week, Padua Franciscan. You prepared for a team in Brookfield last week that a lot of people thought could be pass heavy on the offensive side. They returned a quarterback in Donovan Pulowski, who proved to be one of the best passers in the area back in 2021. Now to Padua Franciscan this week. Their running back, Marquise Hall, had 194 yards on the ground last week. So it could be more of a run-heavy type of scheme this week. Just what are some things that changed as a head coach in your preparation style when you shift to a team that could have a different play style from last week?
Yeah, so Padua presents a number of challenges. So first of all, they have a really good quarterback who, he has as good of an arm as anybody we faced over the past couple of years. Big, strong, drop back style quarterback who can make every single throw. And if you just look at the stats, you don't see how good he is because, they obviously had a close to 200-yard rusher last week. And again, I could say the same thing. He's the running game. He's as good as we faced, probably in a year and a half or more. He is a slasher type guy. He's the type of guy that if we are not gap sound, he has the ability to make a big play. And then you throw in the fact that they're huge up front. They're as big of an offensive line as we've played in a while. Left tackles 6'5", 295, right tackle 6'4", 290, and the guards are 6'2", 6'3", a little bit shorter, just as big. So really big up front, slashing type running back, fantastic quarterback. Yet Holy Name was able to beat them last week, and we were at the game, and the whole game it was interesting because the whole game I felt like Padua was on the verge of blowing the game open, yet Holy Name kept hanging around, and they made a big play in the fourth quarter on a jump ball pass to win the game. And, after watching one quarter of football, if you would have told me Holy Name was going to win the game, I would have said you were crazy. And yet that's what happened. And so what I see is a very, very talented football team that is 0-1, is expecting a big year, and, is a little bit backed into a corner because, 0-2, it's hard to overcome that if you're expecting a big season. So, we know we're going to get their best effort, and they're a very talented team.
Now, coming off such a big win last week against Brookfield that had so much anticipation towards it, and week one, it's one of those games that everyone looks to the entire offseason. How do you gauge it as a coach heading into week two after having such a big win in week one that you may have to kind of calm your guys down a little bit and get them focused on the game at hand after having such a big win last week?
Yeah, so we try to be as consistent as possible every week, regardless of the outcome. And I talk to our kids literally every single week that our goal is to come in tomorrow, evaluate the film, be critical of our performance, fix mistakes, own our mistakes, be coachable. And I say that after a win, I say it after a loss. And, the thing that you have to guard against as a coach is kids getting overconfident because of how they played last week. And, sometimes that's challenging because you're dealing with teenagers, and, it's challenging when you're for the same scenario with adults, quite frankly. So, you're dealing with teenagers, and you try to, be even keeled from week to week. And, that's something that we always stress: just own your mistakes, fix your mistakes, be coachable, work hard at correcting them. And, if you do those things, we're going to get better. If you look at the film and talk about how good we played, I promise you I can find plenty of mistakes on that film to humble you if that's what you think. So, we're always talking about how can we improve, whether it's a win or a loss, and then you find out how mature of a team you have based on how they handle that stuff. And, you always expect a lot of improvement from week 1 to week 2. Doesn't matter win or lose, just naturally, just game management and the flow of the game. And, special team substitutions and things like that, just all the things that it's almost impossible to simulate over the course of a practice. It's never exactly game like, with officials and cheerleaders and media timeouts and all those things that you have to manage. So just getting that first game under your belt, inherently you can get better because of all those things.
Now, picking up right where you were talking about with improvements heading from last week, there were a lot of silly penalties. I know you'd call them from your week 1 matchup against Brookfield, and those are easy things that you can kind of fix up on. My partner up in the booth, Steve Leslie, who knows you better off than I do, I was only 1 week in with Ursuline. He was saying how those penalties that are easy ones to fix, they had to be driving you crazy on the sidelines.
Drive me crazy.
So discipline-wise, heading into this week, looking back at those penalties, are those some things that you kind of go over and practice on how you can kind of fix those and not do those? Because there were a couple that seemed that you got some back-to-back offside penalties that someone lining up just in the neutral zone.
Yeah. And I think we had more alignment penalties last week than we had all last season combined. So, that is a very fixable thing, and yet it drives you crazy because we practice those things every single day. We had 2 scrimmages with officials and it wasn't an issue, and yet it happened. So things like that. And again, that goes back to owning your mistake and fixing them. There are unforced errors that completely are in our control, and those are some examples of them. I've seen very, very few football games in my life that there's not a holding call at some point. You know what I mean? It's going to happen. You try to minimize it, and I'm never going to say it's okay, but it happens, and you deal with that and you move on and you try to minimize it. But the ones that are unforced, that's the thing that drives you crazy. But again, along the same token, those are things that are easy to fix as well. If we can control it, we can own it and fix it. So that's always our approach. But what we do every single Monday, our conditioning, we call it accountability, is completely based on ball security and penalties. So if we had a really good week in those 2 regards, we have very few, if any, running on Monday. And if we have a lot of penalties, we're going to have shuttles. If we have a lot of ball security issues, we're going to have shuttles. And, so our kids take some pride in it. They also know that there's consequence for it.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you for joining us this week. Thanks for taking time out of obviously a very busy week heading into tomorrow night's matchup against Parma Padua Franciscan. This was our week 2 Coach's Corner. Thank you for joining me, Coach, and good luck this week.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day.